In the world of smaller independent watch brands, it becomes increasingly challenging to stand out. The objective value that any brand can put into a watch today puts the entire industry in a golden age of watch collecting. The team at Jack Mason lives by a mantra that they believe separates them from most others: design with intent, honesty, and conviction. Design always wins.
The new Canton was a thrill to work on, understanding that the task at hand was to strip everything down and make literally every part of the watch leaps better than before. As a designer, who wouldn't love that assignment? However, better materials and better tools are also available to others, and they only get you so far. Creating a watch for the collector and enthusiast community requires a level of self-awareness and humility in order to see success. So when it came to redesigning the Canton, we leaned on our own strengths, and that was to design a beautiful piece of art where form and function anchored the identity of the Canton.
With product design being the leading core value at Jack Mason, the team got to work designing from the ground up, starting by redefining the dimensions to meet the expectations of today's customers. With a brand new Swiss supply chain established and the La Jouperet movement, the new era of the Canton also serves as a milestone piece for Jack Mason, symbolizing how far they have come since their humble beginnings in 2015.
When you observe the case of the Canton and pay close attention to the lines, they possess aerodynamic characteristics like that of a beautiful sports car. The case head on its own almost has a stance to it, much like when you see a car sitting in the middle of a dark showroom with a soft light on top of it. The tip of the lug is much like the nose of the car, just hovering barely above the ground surface. When you view the case directly from the side, you start to see how the lugs have a subtle curvature downward, which comes to a point, but it's not too long. Then it curves back up to the underside of the case. This point creates a sense of motion where the top lines of the case flow right into the bracelet and around your wrist. The difference here is that with a more traditional lug, oftentimes the tip of the lug has a more acute angle to it pointing downwards, which in my eyes kills the sense of motion. This particular area was an important moment during the design process, as it was going to be the first thing you see the moment you start to tilt the watch at an angle from viewing it straight on.
This meticulous process of design and consideration is a value proposition that Jack Mason takes pride in and is very transparent about. Every component is thought through and tooled to the standards of the brand, making the watch completely original to its design intent.
The goal with the bezel was for it to have a halo-like effect, and in order to achieve this vision, there was something to be considered, especially where the bezel, case, and end link all meet. The way our eyes view and process three-dimensional objects is slightly skewed, as there is a very subtle distortion that happens when you see surfaces or shapes at different depths of field, thus causing a fisheye type effect. With the Canton bezel, to overcompensate for this effect, the diameter of the case between the lugs is 38 millimeters, while the side of the case sits at a true 39 millimeters along with the bezel. What this does is that it pushes the end link further into the case and tucks it slightly underneath the bottom edge of the bezel. This allows for the bezel to sort of hover above and away from the case and not make it feel like it's melting into it like one form. While this type of consideration might appear like it's overkill, it's what we find the most joy in and gives our work a sense of purpose, falling in line with our mantra, which is to design with intent and honesty.
While the Canton series raises the bar for Jack Mason from an execution standpoint, the brand's North Star in considered product design is ultimately what drives the team forward with an unrelenting dedication to exceed all expectations.
For me, designing watches is a perpetual search for the appropriate look and fit for who you're making it for in a given era. What makes sense today will not be the case 5-10 years from now, and it's the constant chase of the right form, measurement, and physical appeal that I find addicting. Combine that with building a brand and community which customers can trust and support is a constant challenge that we are all faced with. Designing a Swiss-made watch at the level of execution the Canton has is not something that I saw in the pipeline when we started the brand 9 years ago. However, to be in this position where our customers continue to create this demand from us is something that fuels the team to continue the process of outdoing ourselves with every new watch.